You.
Science.
You.
Science.
You.
ScienceYou, the show about science, highlighting young people and their teachers in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. With your host, Dr. Brian Kent Wallace, Director of Physics Laboratories and Rocket Team at historic Fisk University. ScienceYou is recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Adventure Science Center in Nashville, Tennessee. And here's your host, Dr. Brian Kent Wallace.
Thank you. We have a great show for you today. We have a young man from Lewisburg, Tennessee, that's studying hard to be a theoretical physicist. And we have a young lady right here from Nashville that's a master scuba diver and will be a team leader for the Coral Restoration Foundation. Our third student is another young lady, also from Nashville, that's been in love with science from a very young age. We'll take a few minutes to hear from Susan Davenhogue, the CEO of this wonderful facility, the Adventure Science Center. And finally, one of my favorite parts of the show, a popular song parody that we tie to STEM. So, with my co-host, Dr. Dina Meyer-Stroud, let go.
Let's give a big ScienceYou welcome to our first guests, Payton Dollar from Marshall County High School and his teacher mentor, Nicky Randolph from Lewisburg Middle School.
Nervous. Nervous? And how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
You're feeling pretty good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, she's one up on you. You're nervous, she's not. But that's okay. Why don't we just get right into it? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Payton Dollar, and I was born in Athens, Alabama. It's a small town in North Alabama. And we moved to Tennessee in 2003, I believe. And I've just been interested in science ever since my first year in kindergarten. Because I always found myself being a bit different from the other students. I always found myself asking why things worked and why they happened. And it kind of just led to physics and why the universe works and how it works.
Well, you bring up the fact that you felt you were a little different from your fellow students. Did you ever feel like maybe you were ostracized because of that difference, or are they accepting of kind of how you feel a little different?
Oh, they accept it, definitely.
That's good. So you have a positive experience with a lot of your classmates?
Definitely.
Okay. So why don't you tell everybody, how is it that you and I met?
Funny story, actually. My great math teacher, Miss Randolph, she was my 8th grade math teacher last year. I went to her at the beginning of the year about some of my issues about college. I'm an overthinker, so I overthink everything, and I overanalyze everything. So college was very big to me because most of my family, they never really went to college that much. And for me, I worry about that because the future to me is a big deal. So I went to her with my problems about overanalyzing the future in college. And she kind of helped me with that, and I kind of told her what I was interested in, which is theoretical physics. And at the end of the year, in March, I believe, or February, I was surprised with Dr. Wallace when, I think it was a Thursday afternoon, I was surprised with Dr. Wallace. He was in our school conference room, and we kind of talked about black holes.
Because you didn't know I was coming, did
No.
you? Oh, I can imagine that was pretty like, ah! That's that guy that you told me about. Well, that's totally cool. Well, I tell you, let's bring in Miss Randolph. You want to open with her first question?
Yeah, so tell me what sort of has motivated you to be an educator, and how do you feel when you have a student that comes in like this?
Well, I probably knew in high school that I wanted to be a teacher because I didn't want to be, I wanted to do something different every day, and so being a teacher has allowed me to do that. When I met Payton, he would come to my 8th grade math class with a physics book. I didn't know anything about physics, and he would write these elaborate formulas and equations on my board. And of course, he would come and talk to me about what he wanted to be and the things that he wanted to do. And he was very concerned about those things. And at the time, I happened to be taking a robotics and rocketry class at Fisk University through a STEM program, because I taught 8th grade math, so I wanted to kind of introduce some other things in my math class. And when Payton told me that he wanted to be a theoretical physicist, and Dr. Wallace is an experimental physicist, these are words I did not use before I met Payton, it just kind of made sense for him to come to my school and surprise Payton, and he did, and Payton was very surprised, and he also spoke to my math class, 3 of our math classes, and kept them very entertained. So it was a wonderful experience. It was probably one of the days in my 15 years of teaching that I will never forget.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Now, was that you wouldn't forget it because I acted crazy, or because...
A little bit of both. A little bit of both, because you had your name tag stuck to your dreads.
I remember that. Name tag stuck to my dreads. Nobody was going to tell me about it. Just looking totally crazy. But yeah, it was just a totally incredible experience because, you know, we don't expect that the entire class wants to be mathematicians or scientists, but everybody was interested, and that's what made it so cool. So it was a really fun event. So let me come back to you. So, okay, really young age, wanting to be a theoretical physicist. Now, how old are you?
14.
14. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't get that from a lot of 14-year-olds. That, oh, I want to be a theoretical physicist. Oh, okay, I was just going to ask if you wanted to play some Xbox. But that's totally cool. So what were some of the influences that kind of drew you to that interest?
Albert Einstein was one, because I'd always looked into him a lot. He was definitely a big influence with his theory of relativity. And just science in general. A lot of my teachers in the past had something to do with it as well. The question why always came up, because I didn't want just the tip of the iceberg. I wanted all the details underneath the iceberg. Mm-hmm. So
let me ask you this then. So you had this intrinsic interest to know why, and that is a big foundation to what drives physicists. When you think about that question why, did you ever imagine, let me reframe the question. Why theoretical? Why not necessarily experimental?
Because theoretical, I always love space, but theoretical, they mostly focus on the universe instead of just the Earth in general. Experimental physicists, they generally study the smaller molecular part, and I'm more interested into things such as black holes and wormholes and things that we don't get to see that often.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. You know, it's so funny that I can think of a lot of places that I've gone around the country and I've talked about science and STEM, and it didn't matter if I was dealing with, you know, older students like in high school, if I was dealing with middle school students. Whenever we got to the topic of black holes, for some odd reason, everybody got excited. Like, what's in a black hole?
Well, there would be these little passages in our science book that would be talking about black holes, and that's it. I had no other information. I wanted to know more about black holes.
You know, it's so funny. You want to know more about the thing that in science we seem to have the least information about. It's so cool. Well, I want to ask you another question. Now, be it that you have the floor, there are teachers out there that I'm sure sometimes get frustrated or maybe don't know if they want to stay in teaching. If you had a message that you could say to a teacher that is kind of having questions or doubts about being an educator, what would you want them to know?
I think that I'm still in this profession because I have found a way to connect with my students. Physics will always connect Payton and I. If I have a student that's a skateboarder, I'll try to find something that I know about skateboarding that I can connect with them, and that always gets them to work better in my class. And that's just kind of what I've done for 15 years, and it has worked for me. Because my interests may not be the same as my kids' interests, so I'm going to find something that they are interested in, and I'm going to learn a little bit more about it.
Taking an active engagement approach. Mm-hmm.
And I guess my last question for you is kind of the same thing. There may be students that are out there that they may even be embarrassed about wanting to be smart. Because sometimes the smart kids are the ones that they might be made fun of or a little bit ostracized. If there was a student out there that really knew that they liked science or something, but they also wanted to fit in, and they were discouraged about kind of excelling in that, what's the message that you'd want them to know?
I have a huge philosophy on this, so this might get a bit much.
Do your best to be brief, but be honest. We can always just cut it off. No.
I think everybody should express themselves no matter what, because in the end, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It doesn't make any sense, because you are just a person. You know, you have a very short life. You've got to do what you love, and you just got to do it. I mean, it's that simple. Like, you just got to do what you love. You got to find what you are passionate about, and you've got to do it.
Well, I really want to tell you, I follow you on Facebook. I know that you're really interested also in performing, and you just now have gotten a part in the dancing and the singing of a musical for the Addams Family, right? So evidently, if you have an interest in doing it, you just get out there and do it. So you are a fine example of that. I cannot even begin to thank you enough both for coming on the show. It's one of the reasons I asked you, because in meeting you, I don't think I'll ever forget you for my entire life, much less you, Ms. Rudolph. I really thank you for introducing me to Payton, and we would hope to have you back again sometime.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. We'll be back in just a moment.